The words sliced clean through the morning. I froze with the spatula in my hand, eggs hissing behind me like they, too, were offended. Adrian didn't even look up from his phone. Just that half-smirk he'd perfected over the years. The one that used to make my knees weak, and now made my stomach turn. "Last night, I was with the best woman in the universe," he said again, thumbs still scrolling. I placed his plate in front of him. 2 eggs, sunny side up, toast points arranged like a fan, exactly the way he had trained me over 7 years of marriage. "Who was she?" I asked, voice soft enough to pass for curiosity. He finally glanced up, amused. "Someone you'll never meet. But Christ, Alina, she's on another level." The inside of his collar carried a faint crescent of scarlet lipstick. I have never in my life worn scarlet. He left laughing under his breath, the front door clicking shut behind him like the final period on a sentence I no longer wanted to read. I stood in the kitchen for a long time, spatula dripping grease onto the marble island. Then I opened the everything drawer, pulled out the yellow legal pad I once used for grocery lists, and wrote a single line at the top. Day 1. He thinks the knife went into me. Let him keep thinking that. That was how it started. For the next 30 days, I became the world's most convincing ghost. I cooked his favorite dinners. I laid out his cufflinks in perfect rows. I greeted him at the door with a kiss that landed on the corner of his mouth and never quite became real. He loved every second of it. He thought I had finally accepted my place. He had no idea the knife was in my hand now. I began waking at 4:17 a.m., 4 minutes before his alarm, 17 minutes before the city remembered it was alive. While he slept off hotel gin and someone else's moans, I slipped down to the basement we had turned into storage when we didn't need the space. I dragged in a second-hand drafting table, a swing-arm lamp, rolls of buttery tracing paper, and every pigment I could no longer afford to live without. I locked the door from the inside and started designing again. I had once been Alina Valeni, the 25-year-old wunderkind every shelter magazine wanted to photograph. I had given it all up the day Adrian said, "We don't both need to chase the spotlight, babe. Let me build the empire. You make the home beautiful." So I made the home beautiful. And he built an empire that had no room for me in it. Now I built in the dark. Furniture that looked like grief made elegant. Lighting that looked like screams frozen midair. Walls that carried the texture of skin after fingernails have raked across it. I posted nothing. I told no one. I simply worked until my eyes burned and my fingers bled indigo. Adrian noticed exactly 0 of it. He was too busy sending heart emojis to a woman named Chloe while I passed him the fucking salt. One night in November, he left his second phone in the pocket of yesterday's jeans. I found it doing laundry, because of course I still did his laundry. The lock screen photo was them on some rooftop in Miami, her legs wrapped around his waist, his tongue halfway down her throat. I stared at it until the image burned itself onto the inside of my eyelids. Then I did something colder than screaming. I forwarded every text thread, every hotel confirmation, every naked photograph to an email address only I knew existed. I wiped the history clean. I slid the phone back into the exact fold of denim. And I kept smiling. By February, I had 21 complete designs and a whisper network of former clients who still remembered my name. I incorporated under my maiden name, Valenti Atelier. I moved every cent of my new income into accounts that required my fingerprint and my fingerprint alone. I retained a divorce attorney who specialized in wives who had been quietly written out of their own stories. Adrian came home on Valentine's Day carrying a single red rose and the faint scent of someone else's vagina. He kissed me under the chandelier and whispered, "See? We're perfect." I smiled until the corners of my mouth threatened to split. March brought the invitation that tasted like destiny wearing stilettos. The International Design Vanguard Awards. Black tie. Televised. Primary sponsor. Adrian Hale and Partners. I was on the shortlist for Visionary of the Year. I laughed so hard I had to sit on the cold tile of the shower fully clothed. I bought the dress in cash from a boutique that didn't ask questions. Liquid obsidian silk. Backless to the base of the spine. Slits so high it was practically a declaration of war. I had my hair cut into the severe asymmetrical bob I wore the night he first saw me at my thesis exhibition. I painted my lips the exact scarlet that had once lived on his collar. The night of the gala, he texted at 6:42 p.m. Stuck in dinner with investors. Take an Uber, babe. Save me a seat. I replied, of course. Enjoy yourself. I arrived alone. The step and repeat was a storm of flashbulbs. Someone shouted, Alina Valenti. This way. I turned, smiled the way I used to when the world still belonged to me, and walked inside. He was already there, leaning against the bar with Chloe draped over him like cheap tinsel. He saw me across the ballroom and did a genuine double-take, champagne sloshing over the rim of his glass. I pretended not to notice. The lights dimmed. The host took the stage. And the 2026 Vanguard Award for Visionary of the Year goes to Alina Valenti for her debut collection Remains. The room detonated into applause. I walked the aisle like I was walking across the ashes of every promise he ever broke. Every flash felt like vindication. Every step felt like reclaiming territory I had once surrendered without a fight. On stage, I accepted the heavy obsidian trophy and leaned into the microphone. This, I said, voice steady, is for every woman who was told her fire had to be smothered so someone else's could burn brighter. Turns out embers make the most beautiful blades. I looked directly at him, while 10,000 people roared. His face had gone the color of old ash. Chloe's hand was clamped around his wrist, like she was trying to keep him from floating away. I stepped off the stage and he was waiting, frantic.
Elina, Jesus Christ.
Why didn't you tell me? I tilted my head. You never asked what I was doing while you were busy being extraordinary with someone else. He reached for my arm. I stepped back smoothly. Don't, I said, soft enough that only he heard. You lost touching rights the first time you came home smelling like her. His voice cracked. Come home tonight. We'll fix this. I laughed, actually laughed, and it sounded like glass breaking in reverse. Adrian, I said, leaning in until my lips almost brushed his ear, you spent years telling me I wasn't enough. Tonight the entire world just told you I was too much for you to handle. I pulled back. His mouth opened, closed, opened again. No sound came out. Chloe tried to step forward, claws out. I looked her over slowly, deliberately. Enjoy the leftovers, sweetheart, I said. The feast is over. I walked away. Outside, the spring air tasted like freedom and expensive champagne. I didn't look back. I didn't need to. I could feel his stare burning a hole between my shoulder blades, and for the first time in 7 years it didn't hurt. For months later the divorce was final. He kept the house, the Porsche, and the friends who never really liked me anyway. I kept my name, my company, my dignity, and the kind of peace that comes from knowing you burned the bridge only after you'd already built an entire island on the other side. Valenti Atelier is now booked solid for the next 3 years. My waiting list has waiting lists. Vogue called me the woman who turned betrayal into brutalist beauty. Architectural Digest put me on the cover with the headline, "She designed her way out of hell." Sometimes, very late at night, I still hear his voice in my head. The best woman in the universe. I smile into the dark, because he finally told the truth. He just never realized the universe had been quietly sharpening her knife at his breakfast table for 7 long years. My name is Evelyn Harper. 3 months ago, on a cold Tuesday in February, I stood beside a polished mahogany casket while the man who swore to love my daughter forever wept theatrically into a monogrammed handkerchief. Ryan Caldwell, 39, handsome in that clean-cut tech bro way, held my granddaughters Lily and Sophie against his expensive wool coat, as if they were the only things keeping him upright. Everyone murmured what a tragic accident it was. Everyone told me how brave I was for not collapsing. Everyone was wrong. I didn't cry, because the moment the casket disappeared into the earth, an ice-cold certainty settled in my chest. Abigail did not die in a car accident. She was murdered. And the man sobbing loudest was the one who killed her. I'm 66 years old. I raised Abby alone after her father, Thomas, died of pancreatic cancer when she was 9. We buried dreams that year, but we never buried hope. Abby grew up fierce, kind, and stubborn as winter frost. She became an ER nurse because she said someone had to hold the hands of people whose worlds were ending. She met Ryan Caldwell at 29. He was charming, brilliant, and, according to him, completely devoted. He paid off my mortgage as a thank you for raising the love of my life. He bought them a 6-bedroom mansion on 5 acres outside Richmond, Virginia. He insisted Abby cut her shifts because my wife shouldn't have to work herself to death. I thought he adored her. I was a fool. The first red flag was small. Abby stopped wearing short sleeves. Then she stopped laughing at Ryan's jokes in front of me. Then the girls started flinching when their father entered a room too quickly. I confronted her in the laundry room one Sunday while Ryan was working in his office. "Baby, those bruises on your arms look like fingerprints." She folded tiny socks with mechanical precision. "We just had a fight, Mom. He grabbed me too hard." He cried afterward. "He's getting help." I begged her to leave. She promised she would, when the timing was right. The timing never came. 2 days before she died, she sent me a text at 2:14 a.m. "Mom, if anything ever happens to me, check the safe in Ryan's office. Combination is Lily's birthday backward, 31082017 reversed. There's a flash drive labeled A. Promise me you'll look. I love you bigger than the sky." I replied instantly. "Abby, talk to me. I'm coming over." She never answered. Then Ryan's 3:17 a.m. phone call. His voice cracked like rehearsed glass. "Evelyn, there's been an accident. Abby didn't make it." The funeral was closed casket. "Her injuries were too severe," Ryan whispered, squeezing my shoulder. I nodded, clutching my granddaughters while strangers told me how sorry they were. That night, after Ryan passed out drunk on Italian leather, I did what my daughter asked. The office door code was still 0921, our wedding anniversary. The safe behind the fake law books opened with 710200813. Inside, a $5 million life insurance policy on Abigail, taken out 7 months earlier, double indemnity for accidental death. A flash drive labeled A in Abby's handwriting. A velvet box containing a diamond necklace worth more than my house, and 1 dried blood-red rose petal. I took the flash drive. I left everything else untouched. Back in the guest room, I plugged it into my laptop with shaking hands. There were 47 video files. The first was dated 10 months earlier. Hidden camera, probably in the smoke detector above their bed. Abby curled on the floor in fetal position while Ryan's voice, low, terrifyingly calm, floated down. "You think you can threaten to leave me? Take my daughters and half my money? You ungrateful little bitch, I made you." The slap was deafening. Another file. Abby with a split lip, holding the insurance policy. "Ryan, sign the new will, Abigail. Or next time I won't stop at ribs." The final video was time-stamped the night she died. 11:07 p.m. Abby was packing a suitcase, whispering to the camera she must have installed herself. "Mom, if you're watching this, I either made it out or I didn't. I'm leaving tonight. I have everything, the abuse videos, the forged will, the insurance policy he took out after I told him I want a divorce. I'm taking the girls to your house. If he comes after me, tell the world what he is. Tell my babies I loved them every second." The video ended. The accident happened at 11:42 p.m. I sat in the dark until sunrise, watching my daughter document her own murder, and something inside me died and was reborn at the same time. Ryan didn't just kill Abby. He planned it for months. And he was about to collect $10 million while raising my grandchildren to believe their mother abandoned them by dying. I closed the laptop, slipped the flash drive into my bra, and made a decision only a mother who has nothing left to lose can make. 2 can play dead. Over the next 10 days, I became the grieving mother-in-law everyone expected. I brought casseroles. I rocked Sophie to sleep. I let Ryan hug me while I memorized his routines, his passwords, the sound of his lying heartbeat. Then I hired Daniel Rojas, ex-FBI, now private investigator, the best money could buy. I paid him with the thank you check Ryan once wrote me for $50,000. The irony tasted like blood. Daniel found the mechanic who serviced Ryan's vehicles admitting, after a large consulting fee, that Ryan paid him $10,000 cash to loosen Abby's brake line just enough. Recover deleted texts from Abby's smashed phone. Ryan at 11:15 p.m. Where are you?
Come home now.
Ryan at 11:30 p.m. I swear to God if you take my kids. Security footage from a Shell station 3 miles from the crash. Ryan's black Range Rover following Abby's white Civic at a distance. Fresh silver paint transfer on the tree she supposedly hit. Paint that matched Ryan's second car, the one supposedly in the garage all night. It wasn't an accident. It was murder dressed up in rain and grief. But evidence wasn't enough. I needed him to confess on camera. And I needed my granddaughter safe. So I did the unthinkable. I disappeared. On a foggy March morning, I left my car by the lake with my shoes on the dock, an empty pill bottle in the console, and a suicide note. Ryan, the pain is unbearable. I can't live in a world without my Abby. By the time you read this, I'll be with her. Love the girls enough for both of us. Evelyn. The police searched for 4 days. Found nothing. Ruled it presumed drowning. Ryan got 2 funerals in 6 weeks.
Poor man.
I drove north with a wig, colored contacts, and 15 pounds less stress weight. Checked into a motel as Margaret Thompson. For 6 weeks, I became someone else. Then I came back. Not as Evelyn Harper. As Maggie, the highly recommended live-in nanny Ryan desperately needed after 2 nannies quit in a row, mysteriously terrified of the widower. The agency I paid $20,000 under the table sent my resume. I walked into the mansion for the interview, wearing a modest cardigan and a soft southern accent I practiced for weeks. Ryan looked exhausted, unshaven, perfect. He didn't recognize me. Not even a flicker. I lost my own daughter last year. I lied gently. Helping children heal, it's the only thing that keeps me going. He hired me on the spot. Moved me into the same guest wing where I'd found the flash drive. For 72 days, I was the perfect nanny. I made unicorn pancakes. I braided hair with ribbons. I sang Lily and Sophie to sleep with the same lullabies I once sang their mother. And every single night, after the house was quiet, I planted seeds. I left articles about life insurance murders on the counter. I played true crime podcasts loud enough for Ryan to hear. I asked innocent questions. Do you ever worry people might think you had something to do with Mrs. Caldwell's accident, sir? Grief makes folks say awful things. He started D. Lily woke screaming from a nightmare. I carried her downstairs for water and found Ryan in his office at 2:13 a.m., watching the hidden camera footage of Abby begging on her knees. He never heard me enter. I closed the door softly and spoke in my real voice. Hello, Ryan. He spun around, whiskey sloshing over the rim of his glass. For 10 full seconds he just stared, brain trying to reconcile the nanny with the mother-in-law he'd buried twice. Evelyn. The glass slipped from his hand and shattered. I smiled the way a wolf smiles. You know, when people say there's no greater pain than losing a child, they've never watched their child's murderer raise her babies. I held up the original flash drive. His eyes darted to the safe. Looking for this? I pulled the $5 million policy from my apron pocket. Or maybe the forged will. Don't bother. Copies are with Detective Rojas, the Virginia State Police, and 3 major news outlets. He lunged. I was ready. The taser in my pocket, a gift from Daniel, dropped him like a sack of flour. I zip-tied his wrists with the ties he once used to bind my daughter's dreams. Then I set my phone on the desk and hit record. You're going to confess, Ryan. Every detail. On camera. Or I will make sure you never see daylight again. And trust me, I have nothing left to lose.
He cried.
He begged. He confessed. He told the camera how he loosened her brake line. How he followed her that night and rammed her off the road when she wouldn't stop. How he stood in the rain and watched her die slowly because she wouldn't give him the combination to the safe. How he staged the scene, called 911, and cried real tears because part of him did love her, in the only twisted way he knew how. When he finished, he was sobbing into the carpet. I couldn't let her take my girls. I couldn't lose everything. I turned off the recording. You already lost everything the moment you raised your hand to my daughter. I called 911 from his own phone. Left him tied until the first cruiser arrived. Detective Rojas met me in the foyer. He took one look at my face and simply opened his arms. The girls slept through the entire arrest. I dropped the wig in the trash, wiped away the makeup, and became grandma again. Lily woke at dawn, rubbed her eyes, and whispered, "You came back." I held her so tight, I felt her heartbeat sync with mine. Yes, baby. Grandma always comes back. Ryan was charged with first-degree murder, insurance fraud, and a dozen lesser counts. His trial starts in 6 weeks. The prosecutor says it's the most airtight case she's ever taken to court.
We sold the mansion.
I used the money to set up trust funds for Lily and Sophie that no one can ever touch. We moved back to my little blue house on Dogwood Lane, the one Ryan once paid off to look generous. Abby's old room is now the girls' room, painted lavender with glow-in-the-dark stars on the ceiling. Some nights Lily still asks, "Is Daddy coming home?" I tell her the truth in words she can carry. Daddy is very sick in a place where he can't hurt anyone anymore. But he loves you, and one day when you're bigger, we'll talk about the difference between love and harm. Then I kiss her forehead and whisper to the dark, "This one's for you, Abigail."
People call me a hero now.
They want to make a movie. I tell them the only happy ending I need is the sound of my granddaughters laughing in the backyard while I plant roses where Abby and I once planted dreams. I buried my daughter twice. Once in a casket paid for with blood money. Once in the deepest part of my heart where she will live forever. And every morning when the sun rises over Dogwood Lane, I look at Lily and Sophie eating cereal in their pajamas and I know. Evil didn't win. Love did. Love disguised as a grieving mother. Love disguised as a harmless nanny. Love that refused to let the story end with my baby in the ground. Ryan will rot in prison with $10 million he'll never touch. And I get to watch Abigail's daughters grow up knowing their mother was brave, their grandmother was fierce, and some ghosts come back, not to haunt, but to protect. That, my friends, is the only resurrection I believe in. If you read every single word of Evelyn Harper's story, drop a 3 in the comments and tell me where in the world you're reading from tonight. Because some stories need to travel far so no daughter, no mother, no grandmother ever has to fight alone again. With all my love, Evelyn Harper, the grandmother